Yeah, so I guess it's somewhat related, but escape from neutralizing antibodies by SARS-CoV-2 Spike Protein variants. So uh,
Hmm.
we're kind of worried about escape last time because the B117 escape? Maybe not, but is it
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah, and I mean this is very similar. This is like also a callback to our decoys video. Like
Mm,
I feel like we talk a lot about escape mutants in the decoy video because the whole point of making those ACE2 decoys are to circumvent the possibility of escape.
yeah,
So yeah, so we did look at a little background here. This is very similar, right? They try to evolve samples of virus in the presence of monoclonal antibodies. So I think that's
yeah,
important to remember, right? These are antibodies that target one part, one epitope,
yeah.
and they show that they can occur.
I mean, I think the thing that we also need to be clear on is that they use a pseudovirus and not real SARS-CoV-2. Because if they did, I
Hmm.
would go mental. Because having
Ah, yeah, that
that kind of
bad gain of function experiment,
yeah,
right?
I was just I saw it and I was like, no, they didn't, they bloody didn't. Because I was freaking out when they did this in mice. So I mean, it was like so yeah,
Yeah,
no,
previously, I think yeah, it's good thing to point out. Yeah, previously they did this in um they did it in yeast.
yeah,
When we were looking at the decoys, they did those libraries in yeast, and then they used those as like binding assays and neutralization libraries on yeast bodies, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah, so here they're using a pseudovirus. So I guess that is also helpful, a little bit closer to the size of a virus
yeah,
that we're seeing, but not with the payload that would
yeah.
that would indicate bad experiment to do without really. I mean, I'd maybe never do those experiments, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, so
you have to
it's
be very careful about what you're learning, right?
yeah,
There's a space for it, but you have to know what exactly you're learning when you employ that.
yeah. So I mean, they use VSV and they exchange its normal like kind of entry thing with the spike protein, which
Hmm.
again is quite interesting. The thing is, like, the question is like the mutation rates are much higher in there than in normal SARS-CoV-2 because SARS-CoV-2 has all
Hmm.
this proofreading gear. But
Yep.
so I guess you're right. You are what you are basically going to do is like see what specifically these monoclonal antibodies. So these monoclonal antibodies aren't just any. They did like kind of take them from a paper which was trying to find a consensus immune response from people and then pick
Mm.
out monoclonal antibodies from that. So they are can
Hmm.
be you can argue that they're important, but I think that this also might have benefited from a bit more sequence gazing. So like seeing whether the mutation they found turned up in the GISAID sequence like libraries that are being collected.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be nice. That would like relate these findings, right, to something relevant in our right?
Oh,
Because right now it's just a model of mutations appearing, but if we could see those mutations in the population, then we could also just like say something about, yeah, do they gain prevalence? Are they fixed, right? Are they ones that we already have?
I mean, just
Yeah.
thinking like from a perspective like clickbaity, like oh the variants that can avoid can be immune to your antibody response are already out there. That kind of thing. It's got that
Yeah.
fear response that people are looking for when they want to promote like news stories.
But actually, like, it's an interesting, like, I mean, I don't know, it's a complicated relationship, right, one might have with the news and clickbait,
Yeah.
but like, but I mean, that message is not a bad, in my mind, it's like, we have to understand that there is, like, the more the virus spreads, there is more possibility of finding variants, right? And like, the world is doing their best to control that spread and then also surveilling all these genomes, right? And then trying to assign significance to the genomes to make sure that we aren't bringing ourselves to a situation where we're yeah, we're just letting things go.
Yeah.
Um yeah. So there's some truth in that type of clickbaity title.
Well, I mean, I think like raising awareness about the possibility of something like this happening, I think is kind of important, so that people understand the importance of doing testing and tracing and doing that kind of
Yeah.
isolation. So, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.